you could have dumped 1,000 leads in my lap
Oh yeah.
this time last year. You could have dumped 100 consults in my lap, and I wouldn't be where I was. I wouldn't have. I would have screwed up all of it. I would not be where I was if I didn't fix the mindset first. And I think that's the most valuable part of you and rapid bookings this as a system is working through those blocks. There's so many educators out there who just want to sell you an online course. Here's your email, here's your password, and have fun. Sayonara. Never going to hear from them again. For me, the coaching 100% is just so valuable and so much more. I think I got so much more value out of that than any course I've ever taken. Total sales has been $63,613.10.
Nice.
So it's huge for me from where I was before, because I was, like I said, charging 500, $1,000 a wedding. I was able to raise my rates, able to learn a lot about sales, and most importantly, bring in 26 clients. Yeah, and honestly, I have you to thank for it, because if it wasn't for the rapid bookings and the marketing, everything that I learned, I wouldn't be where I am today.
So I guess for anybody watching this video, why don't you kind of give it like a quick 60-second rundown on like who you are, how did you get into wedding photography?
Yeah, so my name's David, wedding photographer locally here in Phoenix, Arizona. And I've been a photographer for years, used to be a photojournalist, dipped my toes into commercial work, e-commerce, a little bit of weddings here and there. I did it all. And then about a year before coming and finding about your program, I started to focus more on weddings, but it was like a weekend warrior thing. I was doing it like for a company, or just doing like $500, $1,000 weddings here and there. It wasn't anything serious. And then about beginning December of 2021, I decided I was going to take it full time. And I had some side work lined up, like some source of income, but I was still able to, devote most of my time to my business. And I just went in full in. And in order to kind of jumpstart that, I invested in some education with some other programs. And nothing negative on them, but it just wasn't what I needed to jumpstart my business where it was at the time. And looking back, I was pretty much totally unprepared to go full time. I didn't have the client base for weddings, anyways. I didn't have the sales experience, any of that. So um ended up in one of the groups for one of the other educators, running across Jeff, who was answering my questions, and he was answering more questions than the dudes that I paid money to answer those questions were. And we ended up just messaging and chit chatting. I was like, dude, where'd you learn all this? And he told me about your program. And so ended up looking at some of your videos, booking a call, and the rest is history.
Yeah, here we
That was
are.
way longer than 60 seconds.
No, you're fine. I mean, two things that I really want to unpack from there. One was, you had a background where you did more than just weddings. You dipped into commercial, e-com, um, tons of different kind of things. And then the second was, of course, you trying to go full time and the different things that you've tried. I want to dive into kind of the first part. What made you specifically kind of want to go into weddings full time? Like, why not pursue, commercial work or anything else? Like, you also have a background in photojournalism. Like, you've got a lot of talent in a lot of different areas.
Yeah, so start with photojournalism. I work for newspapers, and that's a dying industry.
Yeah.
That's pretty self-explanatory, but it was a really good experience. Um, I didn't enjoy the commercial clients as much. And there's a lot of potential there. Like you can make a lot of money if you're a really good commercial photographer. Um, e-commerce, not so much, but that was just something that I was good at and was able to do in volume. Um, but when I started doing the cheaper weddings, I realized, like, number one, it kind of spoke to the little journalist inside of me that wants to be a storyteller and not just make some fake shit for a company that wants to sell stuff. And number two, it was a blast. It's like, man, I'm getting paid to do this. Like, I actually enjoy going to weddings and getting to know the couple and being part of their celebration and part of the party. It was fun. And I was doing that for $300, $400, $500, and then I'm like, well, hell, I there's a lot more potential here. Refine my business, refine my craft, and I can actually do this full time if I try to.
Yeah, makes sense. What was the catalyst for you? Like, did you have a moment where you were sitting down and you're like, you know what? I really want to go full time and pursue this as my career and never look back. Like, what made you want to quit everything else?
Honestly, it was the job I was at where I was doing ecom
Yeah,
photography. They sucked. And I started to get into the numbers because they do a lot of Amazon FBA. I started to get into the numbers with the product managers of how much money they were making on this FBA stuff. And then I even did some research on like how much better their sales improved with a good photograph. And like I had a whole presentation of like directly how much I'm affecting this company's bottom line with my work, and didn't see any of that. Got told no to a raise and a promotion 2 or 3 times. And I've always kind of had the dream that I wanted to work for myself. I didn't know what that looked like when I was a kid, but I knew that I wanted to be my own boss. And I think probably within that same month, I was like, fuck this. I want to be my own boss, and I'm going to figure out what I need to do to get there.
yeah. I think it's a recurring theme with everybody, like even me included. Like, if you're at a position and you feel like you're being undervalued or underappreciated, it's like, why am I gonna work my butt off for you when I can take the same talent and energy and do something better?
For sure. Yeah.
So cool. You have that epiphany, like, you know what? I can be doing something way better for myself. So then you get into a few different kind of courses and educators. Things really don't work out. What specifically happened for you? Because it was I think a month or two before you found me. You were trying a few different things by yourself, and then you kind of found me through Jeff.
Yeah. I don't want to like crap on them too much necessarily, but it was in the job, in the course title, that you're going to get bookings, you're going to get booked. So there was a lot of like foundational stuff that's probably very valuable, but the marketing strategy just wasn't there. There was really no there's no strategy for client acquisition. It was a lot of leaning on referrals, leaning on word of mouth, leaning on venues, the kind of the more traditional approach to getting clients, where if you're starting from scratch, that's not really feasible for a long time.
Gotcha. Cool. Other than that, did you try any other like marketing efforts by yourself?
Yeah, so I mean, I tried the organics stuff. I tried a little bit of Facebook advertising through their guidance and their course, and it was not very very it just wasn't detailed. There was no guidance, there was no strategy. It was just like, yeah, here, this is how you make a Facebook ad, and then just run it and you're going to magically get bookings. There was no strategy behind it. So um that's kind of where you came in.
That's interesting. I don't know if you told me that you tried ads before or if I forgot.
I probably did at some point, but it was like a couple $100 of ad spend. It wasn't anything serious,
Yeah.
but it was all a waste of money because it was it was not done right.
Did you feel like it was the system of actually doing ads? Like, obviously now you know how to do ads properly.
Yeah,
What did you feel like was actually missing if you had to pinpoint?
I mean, everything. There was no, like, there was no explanation of what a marketing funnel is. That was just like directing traffic to your homepage and hoping they fill out your basic inquiry form. Um, there wasn't even like getting into any of the metrics of how do you even tell if a ad is performing or not. You're just like, oh, I hope I get some bookings. It was just very basic, maybe a 10-minute video. This is how you make an ad campaign. This is what you should put in there, but nothing database, nothing actually results driven whatsoever.
Okay, makes sense. So then you wind up talking with Jeff, and then what makes you want to like now invest in another course? Because like you just went through like one or two other courses. I'm sure they weren't cheap, but what makes you
No,
want to invest again?
I trusted you, man. Um, word of mouth to me is really important. And Jeff was pretty transparent about everything. He was like, it's not easy, it takes time. You're gonna have to spend some money. But he was kind of just showing me his numbers. He's like, this is how much I'm spending, this is what I'm getting out of it. This is some of the struggles I've had. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this sounds realistic. And a little bit of cursory research on kind of what your strategy is. Couldn't really find out much, but I had I had the money to invest, and I said, well, if this doesn't work, I'm gonna have to go back and find another day job.
So what's been your results like total sales? Let's just talk about that and then we can dive into like um the first few months.
Yeah, so since I started my funnel last, what was it, February or March, um, total sales has been $63,613.10.
Nice.
So it's huge, huge for me from where I was before, because I was, like I said, charging 500, $1,000 a wedding. I was able to raise my rates, able to learn a lot about sales, and most importantly, bring in 26 clients.
Nice, man. Was this your like best year um so far in business?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's my second year, but for sure the best.
Cool. Congrats. That's not bad for your second year in business.
For sure. Yeah. And honestly, I have you to thank for it, because if it wasn't for the rapid bookings and the marketing, everything that I learned, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yeah, but also thank yourself because you are definitely one of the hardest workers like inside the entire program.
Oh,
So
thank you.
it's 50-50, right? You have to have the system, but you also have to have the work ethic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Appreciate it.
and so like uh do you recall like after launching the funnel, the first 30 days or 60 days, what was your results?
Yeah. So the very first booking I got a retainer instead of the wholesale, like you tell me to. I
Yeah.
wasn't listening to you, and she ghosted me. Still haven't heard from her, so it was very discouraging. And I was coming up on the time where I have, okay, I got to pay rent. My other secondary source of income stopped in March, in February actually, and I was starting to like, oh, this is really making or break it. Um, but I stuck with it. I know we've made some changes with the ads. You definitely helped me with the coaching calls, was really helpful. If it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have stuck with it. And then in, when was it? March, I started to book clients and just kind of built from there. Booked my first client, very low numbers. Raised my rates pretty much immediately. March, April, and then in May, within 3 months. I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but within 3 months, I made 18 grand in 1 month.
What do you think was like the biggest shift for you, man? Like whether it's like mindset or strategy or perspective, like what really made you improve?
I think the biggest thing for me really was mindset. Um, between the coaching calls and even just the education, because you get into that a little bit in the course, is, getting away from the, well, what if it doesn't work? Well, what if this happens? What if all the negative shit that could happen? And just getting into, okay, well, what if it does? What do we need to get there? What do we need to make happen in order to get where we need to be? So just shifting the mindset, and then obviously the technical side of it too, like having the ad strategy, having the sales skills. Because I think I told you on the very first call, when I bought the course, I told you I'm not a salesperson. I'm not a sales guy, and you probably took a good month or two to get that out of my head, because at the end of the day, that's what we do. It is sales.
Yeah, we're all in business. I mean, whether we realize it or not, like we have to be passionate about what we're doing, but then on top of that, we also have to communicate that passion in a way where people can rally behind us and say, you know what, I believe in your work too, and I'm going to pay you.
Yeah,
So it's
absolutely.
not always like selling, but the way I look at it about is like, you're serving them. And if you want to serve your couple, you have to be in business, you
Right.
have to make money.
Right. And I think that was a big thing for me, is looking at sales from the mindset of, you're providing a service. You're not some skeevy used car guy with a comb over, just trying to make a buck off of someone off of a crappy used car. You're providing value. And, coming from that mindset of providing value, of like, hey, I have a service, I'm going to solve a problem for you, and I'm going to do a really damn good job at it. Why wouldn't you book with me? That I think is a game changer.
Yeah. And I mean, some of these things, like you and I have been talking pretty much every single week for like almost a year now. So, like,
Almost.
my memory fades, but I do recall, like, in the beginning, we did have a slight bump with your sales, like bumpy road, and we
Oh
did
yeah.
have to kind of work through. Um, do you want to kind of dive into that a little bit? Like, what was kind of your key lessons, and like looking back, like, what do you think is like, oh, totally silly, David? Like, why would you
Yeah.
even do that?
Yeah, for sure. Which bump though? Because I had plenty.
Why don't we focus on, let's say, just like top three, and if we could, yeah,
Well, initially for me, it was like I was getting calls, the ads were working,
yeah,
and I was blowing the consults. I would listen back to my calls, and you would encourage me to listen back to the calls, and I would like almost talking them out of booking me. Um, so, and then, the other thing of like, I like to overthink, and then I get discouraged, and I'm like, oh, if I don't make this sale, you did a lot to teach me to approach business as a whole, consult, sales, advertising, whatever, the whole package, from an abundance mindset. Not thinking like, oh, if I don't sell this client, I can't pay rent this month, because people can smell that. Like, once number one, that you can, people value you and they're going to pay your rates for your wedding. But number two, there's plenty other couples after this one. If they don't book with me today, cool, I'm not worried about it. Thank you, next. Um, that has just been really helpful for both my mental health and for obviously the health of my business. Um, that was probably the biggest and the first hurdle for me. And then the other ones, I think it was really just consistency. I like to tinker with things. If one little thing in the system is a little bit off, I want to change stuff. And um, there's a lot of little technical guidance you've given me, like with the learning curve, and learning, okay, what's actually going to move the needle, as you say, what's actually going to make a difference in our business. But also, like, taking a step back and looking at things from a data driven, a number standpoint, rather than making emotional decisions because you don't feel like your business is doing good that day.
gotcha, yeah. And I mean, this part of the conversation we could just have like loose, relax, because we've got tons of these like client interviews, right? And like in the beginning, I would love to like focus on the numbers and show like, hey, Rapid Bookings is
Yeah,
the real deal. But I've got tons of those interviews. So I want to like dive into instead like the nitty gritties, like what's actually been the value. But it sounds like for you, man, it's actually not necessarily the leads, but it's the mindset and how you operate with those leads. And
absolutely.
I can really tell, um, like from back in the day, like from the guy that you were, Like I remember our very first call, like you were, sorry to say, David, you were kind of an emotional mess because you came to me the first call. You're like, "Oh, I had a wedding. They just completely backed out." Do you remember that call?
I do. And it was a big deal.
And I had to like calm you down. And I was like, listen, David, start pretending like the David that's already at six figures. You know, this is just one wedding out of the 30 that you're doing this year. Like,
Yep.
how would that David react? And I
Yep.
was like, all right, let's start pretending like you're that David. Have that balance and sanity first.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, like you said, the leads, they're important, but you could have dumped 1,000 leads in my lap
Oh, yeah.
this time last year. You could have dumped 100 consults in my lap, and I wouldn't be where I was. I would have screwed up all of it. I would not be where I was if I didn't fix the mindset first. And I think that's the most valuable part of you and rapid bookings, this as a system, is working through those blocks. There's so many educators out there who just want to sell you an online course. Here's your email, here's your password, and have fun. Sayonara. Never going to hear from them again. And that's, some people can learn that way, but I'm not one of them. I have to learn the hard way.
Yeah. And you have to look at it like who you're working with, like whether that product is a passive income product for them or if that's like their active thing that they're doing every
Mm,
single day. Like that's the biggest differentiator. Like, not to knock on anybody because like I don't know what they're doing, I don't know what they're teaching, so I cannot say good or bad. But me as a person, right? If I ever invest, I always look at it like, am I just buying into someone's like passive income fund? If it is, like, I would rather not be the guinea pig. Nothing against them, but that's
yeah.
not just how I like to operate.
Yeah, that's a good point, because there's definitely some that feel like that. They got weddings clients that they're more concerned about. They just want to get your money for their course, and hey, more power to them. Not for me though.
Yeah. So, I mean, where are you at right now in terms of your mindset and headspace, like 1 year after rapid bookings?
I mean, compared to a year ago, so much better. Been able to continue to support myself, with some small hiccups here and there. But I know, even if tomorrow, even if everything were to dry up, I'll be fine. I'll figure out something else. I'll change my ad strategy. I'll still be able to sell. I'll still be able to be an amazing wedding photographer, and nothing really long term. I'll be fine. So just that mindset of like, I'm not where I want to be yet. I have big goals, and that goalpost is always going to move. But just seeing how far I've come in such a short amount of time, it just makes me even more excited for, man, what can I do in the next year?
Yeah. What's been like your key skills that you acquired? I know ads and sales is probably one of them. Anything else that you kind of picked up under your arsenal?
Ads is definitely a big one. That's like a learned skill that you can't just learn at a university. Sales, like you said, that's probably one and two. Um, I think just as a business owner, learning from somebody like you, who, you know, you said I was an emotional wreck when something went wrong in
Used
my
to be.
business.
Yeah.
So just beating me over the head and telling me, "Hey, stop making emotional decisions. Look at the data. Make logical decisions. Make data-driven decisions, and it's going to be okay. If it's you put in the inputs, you're going to get the outputs." So just that kind of like entrepreneurial mindset of just not just the ability to not be able to sabotage myself, I guess, is what I'm not saying this very well, but I think you understand what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Self sabotage is real. I mean, whether you are doing well in business or whether you're doing bad at like every level, like we have imposter syndrome or sabotage that creeps in.
Mm,
And sometimes it helps if you have a friend or a coach that can be kind of like objective and have a third person's view on everything that you're doing and just say, are you, should you be doing this? I don't think so. Just kind of this horse blinder to keep you on track.
yeah.
Because I think
Yeah, absolutely.
you could have the strategy, right? Like I could give you pretty much the rapid bookings course, just that, no coaching, and you should still be able to like crush it in business. But sometimes you also need people to be like slapping you on the hand and be like, nope, get back on track.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I was probably one of your more difficult uh success stories because I had a lot of mindset blocks and I had a lot to learn. I'm sure there's people out there who they could take your course and just be absolutely freaking successful and not need any help. But I think everybody's different. Everybody's stage in life, stage in their business, and for me, the coaching 100% is just so valuable and so much more. I think I got so much more value out of that than any course I've ever taken personally.
Yeah, I'm like that sometimes too. I told you, like, I do martial arts. Sometimes I need my coach to catch me, even though I know what I should be doing. It's just like,
Yeah.
yeah, coach, I know I'm effing up.
Sometimes you need someone to call you on your BS.
Pretty much. So, I mean, um, I'm guessing this was a good investment for you.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. One thing I forgot to ask you, what's been your total ad spend?
So I just went through the numbers since I started the funnel. Total ad spend $10,300 over about a year. So it's with some breaks, it's been about 1,000 a month.
What would you say to someone that's watching this video and they're like, oh, I don't know if I should invest in a coach, invest in ads, regardless of it's me or some other person that they're wondering if they should get help?
Stop sabotaging yourself and freaking invest in your business. Trust yourself. If you think you can do it, if you're even remotely want to be successful in wedding photography or whatever you're trying to do, um don't spend money on gear. Don't go buy a $2,000 camera. Don't go buy $1,000 lens. Spend that money on yourself. Learn how to make more money. I think that's the best thing you can do, whether it's you or anybody else. Just invest in yourself and make yourself more valuable.
I love that. And what about to some of the newer students that's coming inside Rapid Bookings? They might be watching this video, they might be seeing you on the coaching calls. Like, what advice would you give these newer students?
Mahmood knows what he's talking about, and listen to the man. This stuff works. It works. I was probably one of the, I'm sure you have lots of people who are like, I don't know if this is real, or they're cautious, don't really believe it, but like, trust the process, listen to what Mahmood says, and give it time. You really do get what you put into it. So if you're not going to put in the effort, it's not going to happen for you. But if you listen to Mahmood and you are consistent, it's going to happen.
Cool, man. Thank you. Well, I think that's about it. That's all I had question wise.
Thank you. I owe a lot to you, man. I really mean it when I say thank you for everything you've done.
You are welcome. You are the reason I do all this. You
Oh,
guys, the community, everybody. Otherwise, like, it's a lot of hard work. I wouldn't do it just for myself.
yeah, we appreciate you.
Yeah.